Greetings. This is Angela Blueskies, and it is such a pleasure today to be together with a sister that I have not seen in far too long, someone that I have immense respect for who's done so much good in this world. Um, Ramdesh, it is such a gift to have you here with us today. Uh,
Hi, nice to see you.
it is so good to see you. So Dr. Ramdesh Kaur is a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher and the former host of Spirit Voyage Radio. She's also a writer and an advocate for deeply embodied self-love. And I'm sure that we could probably do like a 4 hour long conversation and only cover half of these things. But I'm just delighted to be with you today so that we can share some of your beautiful wisdom with our listeners.
Thank you so much for
Um,
having me here. I'm so enthusiastic about the stories that you're sharing and the voices that you're offering for people to listen to. Thank you for letting me be one of them.
oh my gosh, it's truly my pleasure. So to begin, I'm wondering if you would be so kind as to just guide us in a meditation so that we can all come together in this moment a little more fully.
Absolutely. There's a meditation I really love called Meditation for Calm Heart. And it brings pranic energy into your heart center and allows, when we get frazzled, the energy sort of spikes outward from us. And our mind goes off and our breathing is random and rapid. So we've left little bits of ourselves all over places. And, you're a shamanic practitioner, so you know all that, like bringing different parts of yourself back. So this is a simple pranic meditation, a little exercise of breathing that does a similar thing, brings your energy back into you. Take your left hand and you put it on your heart center, and you raise your right hand and bring it into what's called Gyan Mudra, which is touching the forefinger and the thumb together. And you just raise it right up. You'll often see Buddha statues with this position. It's a gesture of peace. So you bring in peace into your heart. And from this position, you're just going to shut your eyes and you're going to inhale through the nose slowly and fully. And when you have your breath fully expanded, you're going to hold as long as you comfortably can. So you're not going to push your lungs, but you're going to hold the air in your lungs. And when you can no longer comfortably hold it, you're going to exhale out the nose again, completely and fully. And when you have the air out of the lungs, you're going to hold that. And then again, you'll repeat when you're no longer able to do that. And you'll just do that. Inhale, hold, exhale, hold, while maintaining the posture. And as you're doing this, just allow every breath to bring you a little bit more into your heart center. And for some people who aren't used to pranayams that involve holding the breath out, it might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but it's a critical stage to allow spirit to rush in when the absence of the prana is there. So you're actually building prana through the absence of prana. So just continue. Your mind can just be very light, very soft, just focusing in on the breath. You're not steering it in any one direction. You're not chastising it if it's leaping around. Just continuing to follow your breath. Let's do it one more time. Just inhale very deeply and suspend your breath. And exhale. And hold your breath out. And then inhale normally. And inhale very deeply now. And exhale strongly through the nose. One more time. And one final time. And exhale. Just notice if you feel a difference. Notice if you feel a little bit more centered, a little bit more aware of your heart center, a little bit more contained. For me, this type of meditation and pranayama really works. And I think everyone has different frequencies of spiritual practices and paths that really deeply work for them. So if that one didn't work for someone, they should just go find a different one. But for me, that's a very juicy way of just bringing myself back into my heart and resetting the energy of my mind, resetting the energy of my body to be in sync. Like I want my body and my mind to meet in the heart. And so it's a very simple practice that I do. I've done that in the car before, before going into meetings and things like that. So that's meditation for a calm heart.
Hmm. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I feel energized, and I feel like my whole body is tingling now from like inviting in so much more prana than was probably there after I sat at my desk for most of the day. Really
Right?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Right.
The left hand in the lineage that I follow is the pranic hand. So you can direct the energy in your body with your left hand to go to a certain place. You're like, oh, go into my heart. And
Hmm.
it's so enervating. And it's great because when you're doing it for the first time, you don't want to do it for longer than 3 minutes. So it's like it's an easy way to feel really successful at meditating because you're like 3 minutes done. And then you've achieved feel it. It's not like 3 hours and 5 years of ceremony. It's like 3 minutes. You're like, okay, I can give you 3 minutes, Ramdesh, to meditate.
Well, hopefully anybody who really appreciated that meditation will keep coming right back to this segment and
Yeah.
continuing to meditate with you. 3 minutes is so doable. I mean, I think so many people are like, I need to be able to meditate for 30 minutes in silence without moving on my cushion and have a completely still mind like a clear lake flawlessly from day one. And it's just too high a standard and
Oh
people can't
goodness.
sustain it.
I don't know if I would really even like the person that could sit down and meditate solidly with no issue for 30 minutes the first time they ever tried to meditate. I don't know what kind of a mind or personality they would have because it would be more natural for that to be difficult for someone for the first time. It is a muscle, it is a practice, and you do kind of develop different stages with it. But one of the great things for me is maintaining a beginner's mind. And I love meditations that are actually intended to be done for shorter periods of time because I find like I'm not as likely to fall into my spiritual ego, like, well, look at me, I just did a 62-minute meditation. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, oh, this
Yeah.
is a 3-minute meditation and I'm going to do it for 3 minutes, and I'm not like using that to be like, oh, look, I'm such a great meditator. I'm like, no, I can meditate for 3 minutes. Good job.
Yeah.
It has power and impact, and it keeps me kind of simple with it. And I've been a lot of different places with my practice in my life, but the simple, sweet, accessible one is where I'm at right now. So
I love that. I think it invites us to show up in a way it's palpable. Like, okay, I can take a break in the midst of my crazy busy thing, whatever it is today, and take that time to reconnect with myself, to reconnect energetically, and to reset myself when it's easy to get just caught in the mind and to kind of vacate the body even because so many things call us to just be ahead, right? All of the work that we do in Western culture, by and large, just invites us to be a mind.
totally,
But
totally,
yeah,
that's so true. And it is a really odd thing to just be a mind, and to try to turn the body off and then just focus up here. It's such an awkward sensation. It really causes a lot of unnecessary pain.
definitely. And I think that that kind of takes us into more of what the heart of our conversation will be today. Conversation that I'm personally so excited to have with you and to share with others because your work is just such a gift. So, as we were contemplating today's conversation, it was really clear that self love would be at the heart of it. And there's so many different ideas and healing conversations focused on self love. I mean, I've encountered in the 20 years I've been on this path, like a lot of different interpretations of what that may involve. And it's hard to know what it even means. So, can we start by just hearing from you what self love is about for you?
So it's a really good point that you're going to hear it used in so many different ways, and it's sometimes it makes me giggle a little bit because I think people think of it as self care. It's a little bit like when you see a Buddha head in a spa, and I'm like, I'm not sure how Buddha got associated with the spa industry, but he is. Self love so has kind of gotten associated with things like manicures and pedicures, and I'm like, well, if you want, but that's not quite what it is to me. Self-love to me is being present to yourself. It is bearing witness to your own life in a non-judgmental, totally accepting way, showing up for yourself as a friend, as a true love, as like a radically compassionate spirit, just witnessing and accepting and encouraging um, and embodying however life shows up as you. So it is a deep relationship. Self-love is far beyond, oh, I love myself, it has nothing to do with vanity, and it has nothing to do with ego. Self-love is total presence to that exists within you from a state of neutrality and a state of being of beyond condition. There's like no condition you can be in, and that kind of intersects with when people think of body positivity. I don't use the work that I do in the same way that most people have body positivity. I'm positive about my body. I like it. It's fantastic. But I use it as a radical state of accepting any condition it shows up in or doesn't show up in. No, like there's no weight at which I would have an absence of self-love. There's no state of health or illness at which I would have an absence of self-love. There's no embodiment that this vessel could present to me that would cause me to take away my love, because it's unconditional. It's truly unconditional self-love. And it took me a while in this lifetime to learn how to do this, but now that it's there, it's like a light which can't get turned off. It's just an eternal flame that's hovering there. It's always there. It doesn't mean that I can't have moments where I might forget for a second, but less and less. It really has become the cornerstone and the foundation upon which other things are built. And that's a really amazing thing for my own personal life. It's like a radical difference from how I started. So that's how I think of self-love.
I love it. And, I think what you're pointing to and what you just said, that it's a big shift from where you began your journey. I think a lot of people would hear you speak, and I know that I've been in this kind of position where I hear somebody speak about something that is strong and positive, and people might presume, oh, well, you've never actually been through anything difficult, you've never had any other perspective, and I know that's not true in your journey. Like your journey of self-love has been filled with a number of mind-body struggles, including illness and injury. And I think that it can be really a gift to our listeners to hear some of your story.
Absolutely. Well, I overcame 25 years of eating disorders. Particularly, I was primarily bulimic. There were decades where I threw up 40 times a day. So, I mean, the idea
40
that
times a day.
40 times, yeah. So, I mean, I was very severely ill. So the idea that I didn't have a time period in my life where I loathed my body is just incorrect. I've definitely experienced the other parallel of it. And I've, been able to heal not just the behaviors, but the deep misunderstanding, like a soul wounding that led to those behaviors, because nothing was ever wrong with me. I wasn't broken in my head. I had behaviors that were very cruel, that were desperately trying to sort out what was wrong inside in my heart, wrong in my soul. And once I was able to repair that and work with that for several years, then I got to this state. I've also had experiences where when I was 9, I was in a coma for several weeks. I lost my hearing. I'm still profoundly deaf. To save my life, they injected me with tons of cortisone, and it made me gain a tremendous amount of weight in a very short period of time. So my body was covered with deep purple stretch marks that looked like tiger stripes, and made me the object of ridicule for kids in my school for many, many years. I've experienced things like I had Guillain-Barré, so I've been paralyzed from the waist down. I've had brain injury. I was in an accident last summer that you know about that caused an absolute brain trauma. I mean, I lost my personality. I had trouble speaking. I lost reading comprehension. It was just terrible for a very long time. I mean, my mind was gone. So I've been in a lot of, I feel like my life path has a lot to do with my body. Like the fact that like my book is called The Body Temple is not a joke. Like my karma in this lifetime, my path has really been to butt up against every extreme the body can offer. It seems like every year there's a new tremendous challenge for my body to overcome. And cycle of pain. I was recently hospitalized for a week with amoebic dysentery instead of having a lovely vacation in Mexico. So, I mean, I do have a lot of karma that comes up for me to work out physically. But what I have gotten to with the body temple work and the work that I do and this deep practice of self-love, because it is a practice. In fact, I would say that the practice of active self-love is more important to me than meditation. Where I've gotten to is that my body cannot take me anywhere or have any condition in it where I am angry with it. So, for example, when Guillain-Barré came up, which is an autoimmune disorder that causes paralysis, and it's rapidly ascending paralysis. So, you begin to lose movement in your feet, and then you lose movement in your lower legs, and then it comes up. And mine blessedly stopped at the abdomen and never got to be life-threatening. But once it does that, it takes like a year to regain the use of your legs. So within a day, you're paralyzed, and then you have to deal with it for a really long time. When I was going through that, and I could observe it happening, I was like, we'll be okay. We can do this. There's a lesson in this for us, And it was for us. It's always us now. Like, it's like me and my body temple, and we are on this path together as best friends. And it speaks often to me and gives me messages, just like, if you're in the world of natural medicine, meaning, you receive messages from the trees or the winged creatures or the four-leggeds or the flowers. If you are used to receiving messages from the natural world, why are you not listening to the messages your own body is giving you? And the body can only speak in a limited number of languages. It can speak in pain. It can speak in illness. It can speak in vibration. It can speak in ecstasy. It can, but it can only speak in those words. So when an illness comes up, or when it, suffers from a parasite, or when it experiences a challenge, it's speaking to you and it's giving you a message and a lesson. And if you presume this, if you establish as fundamental and inviolable that your body is your best friend, and it will never take you down a path that you aren't supposed to go on. And if you really believe that it will fight for your life as hard as it can, as long as it can, because it loves you so much, its whole reason for existence is the carriage of your soul, as far and as long and just down the path that you need to go. If you understand this, then you cannot be afraid. You can't, it will never lead you wrong. Even when it hurts, it's speaking to you. I remember I was in a relationship that was really not serving me. And I stayed way past the time when I should have left, because I had a sense in my mind of loyalty. And so my body, this was a relationship with a significant other, began to develop very severe endometriosis. And it was just agonizing. And the more I stayed, the worse it got. And the more I stayed, the worse it got, until I no longer had it within me to ignore the hugeness of the message. I was like bleeding to death and screaming, like it kept ratcheting it up because I wasn't listening. And when I finally said, you don't feel safe as a woman in this. You don't feel honored as a woman because this is coming from your womb. You need to make some sort of change. And so then I would tune into my body and put my hands on my womb for every day for months and be like, what do you want? It wasn't coming from my elbow. My uterus was talking to me. And so when I went into a meditation with my body temple, placed my hands on my uterus and had a conversation with my uterus and said, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? If you're my best friend, why are you hurting me? She says, because you won't listen. I don't feel safe as a woman. You don't feel safe as a woman. Your womanhood is not being honored. Blood is joy. Blood is life. You're bleeding out. Your joy is gone. How can you honor yourself as a woman and honor me? And so I looked at my life and I said, you know what? This relationship is not serving me anymore. It hasn't for too long and I have to leave. And so I left and my pain stopped. My bleeding stopped. My healing happened. So she sacrificed herself. She didn't push me into an area I couldn't manage. She took me to the very, very edge. And she said, will you honor yourself and your femininity? And she sacrificed herself, in like my womb, my body, put herself through that pain to get that message to me and woke me up. So if you love yourself that deeply, if you trust your body as a message carrier for you, and you enter into a deep conversation with it, a conversation of love and trust and questioning, what do you need from the driver up here, this thing that I think of as I, that, what do you need? And you take that message in and transform. Oh my gosh, like for me, that's been the most profound relationship of my life, has been with my body temple. It knows far, far sooner than I ever do what I need. It knows so much more about the core of the depth of my desires and my fears. It feels it way before my mind does, and it is wiser than I am because it's so rooted and so connected to nature. Our minds have convinced us, we're not connected to nature because, we're behind a television screen watching TV or we're on our computer all day long. There is nothing about my body that could ever be disconnected from nature. My mind can be disconnected from nature, but my body is made of it. My body is made of the earth and the water and the sun and the stars, and it knows. It has a wisdom and a power and an intelligence far beyond me. It has white blood cells. I don't have a clue how to make white blood cells. It does. It can survive. It can heal. It can transform. I don't have a clue how to do that. But if I follow its wisdom, it teaches me, It's like, hey, I'm here giving you a human life. You are a spirit and you don't know what to do. Pay attention.
I love it. Oh my gosh. I feel like I need to say amen after that. It's so
Amen.
good.
Yes.
Amen.
But that's
Um,
the real work of the body temple. And my book has a lot of Kundalini yoga in it. And that's great because it's a path that can wake you up, but it's a path. You can be on any path and be participating in this relationship with your body temple. That's what's important, not the road you walk on to get there. I could care less what style of yoga people use. I happen to use one because I know how to teach it. But it's about waking yourself up to that fact that this temple is more than that. It is like 1,000 grandmothers inside you, way smarter than your mind. And it
Totally.
is constantly teaching you and talking to you. And when you wake up to that, my God, how can you not love yourself? How
Yeah,
can you not love yourself?
totally.
How can
And
you love your body? How
and
can you
with some
not
of the
love
work that I
every,
do,
you know?
um, yeah, and so some of the work that I do literally brings in that embodied uh, in your bones, in your blood, in your DNA connection with ancestors, grandmothers, and grandfathers
Totally.
that gives us direct access to that knowledge and wisdom in a way that is not just woo woo out there somewhere, but it's feeling, it's knowing. And so as I've been on the same kind of journey in my own path, like my body is literally like the receiving space for those things, the diviner of it. And without this body, how could I possibly imagine being in this world and connecting to what is beyond it and what has come before me? Because my ancestors literally live within my own skin.
I do. And one of my favorite like personal hobbies is genealogy. And I love
Mm.
to find out who are these people that are living in my skin, you know, and what did they go through, and finding out even some of their journeys, like that there's a grandmother that I have who was the only female survivor of the second crossing of the Atlantic when the second Mayflower came, only woman. And so then I can sit there in meditation and try to connect with her directly. I'm like, okay, so whatever fear you had, you overcame it. You got through a very arduous journey and you survived. So your survival strength is in me. What other gifts do you have? And, crawling into her life and her experience and extracting that blessing has been such an outrageously fun process for me. And my body appreciates the acknowledgement. I do believe very much that so there's a mantra in the Kundalini tradition called Ang Sang Waheguru. And Ang Sang Waheguru is chanted over and over and over. It actually means in every cell of my body is the ecstasy of the awareness of the divine in the here and now. So that when you chant it, you're calling on every cell to start vibrating with the joy of the awareness of the divine. So, I mean, your body is singing about how excited it is to be alive and to be aware and one with all creation, even when you forget. And inside of that is encoded all of these lives and these spirits that their bodies were dancing and singing. So all of their joy, all of their celebration, all of their devotion that their bodies went through is still here. That's a lot of devotion when you think about it. Like, that's thousands of years of prayer holding up the structures of my bones. And like, if my mind becomes depressed and dark, I can force my body to go into that place. But the reason it would only ever respond to that is just to try to wake you back up, to try to say, hey, there's another, this is not the most fun way to exist. Let's lift it back up. And it'll respond to the opposite. We're going where your mind will lead it. But I don't know. I just love that. I love the fact that all of my ancestors are in me, in this exquisite temple. And so are the stars, that it's not even just the ancestors that you can connect with or talk to or could verbalize, but that the stars are in here. Like, I'm made of stardust. Like, I find that very wonderful, that we're
Yeah.
carbon-based life form, and therefore I'm stardust.
It's it's one of those things that can sound so like hippie woo woo, but then when you go deeper into it, it's a part of the great mystery that breathes us all into being. And that mystery, like in looking at it the way that you've just shared, like we are stardust and we are like literally the living embodiment of our ancestors. When I consider the ways that I was raised, with the body being an enemy and something to be pushed to the breaking point, I mean, very puritanical kind of ways of thinking, it's like that's out of alignment with divinity too. Like if my body is stardust, my body is ancestors, my body is a temple, my body is a gift of God, divinity, how can I possibly fight against it? How can I possibly not respect it and want to treat it with kindness? Because that is disrespecting everything that personally in my life is devoted to and given to.
You know,
So,
it's so understandable though. There's no judgment in me on someone who hates their body or who looks in the mirror and, you know, looks at their butt and spends 50% of their time on earth focused on the size of their butt. It's very common. It's extremely common. There are people I tremendously admire, spiritual teachers I tremendously admire, who openly talk about the fact that they don't have that figured out, that that one thing, that they spend too much of their life focused on the size of their body. And I get it. I I don't think, I think it's such a natural human inclination because I've spent a lot of time in my life trying to figure this out. Like, why are we so willing to throw our bodies under the bus? And I think it's such a root chakra survival situation. I think that at some point in babyhood, when we're very impressionable, for some of us, we receive a message that our beauty is what is making people give us food, keep us alive, not throw us out into the cold when we can't, when we're totally helpless and relying on other people when we're a baby. That somehow this external has to look a certain way in order to be accepted, and acceptance therefore means survival. It's really common, and I don't think anyone should be ashamed of. I certainly am not ashamed of the fact that I spent 25 brutal years, on the other side of the equation, hating myself. But I think that it is possible to overcome that original. I love that you talked about your upbringing with your body being a sin, because that original sin, that original
yeah.
sin of rejection of the self, or thinking that the way it looks is why people are loving you and taking care of you, because you're a cute little baby, so therefore they're taking care of you. And there is some biological truth to that. Like, if you in the old days, if you looked like a monster, perhaps you would be left out in the cold, exposed to the elements. I mean, that's the sad truth of a lot of human history. So there is some biologically encoded correct fear. It just isn't valid anymore. And once you realize that you can deeply love and accept yourself, even if you have this belief, even if you have this false belief, and once you deeply love and accept yourself, even if fill in the blank and every single statement is true, you realize it doesn't even matter anymore. You can just they drop away. So I didn't come to this healing by trying to fight against my rage at myself. I didn't come to this by saying, stop being mean to yourself. That didn't work for me. I had to come into this awareness, and I work on it all the time, so I'm still doing this awareness by saying, even if you torture yourself for the rest of your life, I'm going to love you. What? Even if you never fully accept yourself, I'm going to love you. What? I was like, wait, you mean I can be this, that had this refrain playing in my head that I was like, this is some messed up bulimic girl, even if I'm still going to love you, and I'm still going to accept you, and I'm still going to be your friend. I stopped because I accepted the radical in one way. And so it became so accessible to me to accept the radical the other. It seemed to me impossible that I could accept my body no matter what. But once I accepted myself no matter what, accepted my flaws no matter what, I wasn't trying to fix myself anymore. I wasn't trying to fix my mind. I wasn't trying to fix my personality. Just accepted myself. So many of the behaviors and the things that needed fixing just sort of fell away. So that was my personal path. And I can't say that would work that way for everyone, but it did for me. That was the key. That was that radical self-acceptance of me beyond condition and me outside of perfection was the gateway, the entry point into my like huge shift and huge way of life. And then I've come now to this realization that, you know, we have purposes and missions here. Some of them are big. Some of them are big by being very little. Some of us have like 100 purposes. Some of us have one. I don't presume to understand the way of this mystery, but I know that not a single one of us incarnated to achieve a pant size.
That should be a bumper sticker right there.
Like, so knowing that, it got really deprioritized in my life. You know, I don't really care. You know, but when I tell, like, I use that phrase sometimes when I'm talking to people, and they always break into laughter. But it's true. Think about the amount of energy and the mental energy that people in this world spend on their pant size.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us came here for that. So maybe we could take just a fraction of that energy back and put it on some things that are more powerful to our purpose and see what happens.
You know, I feel like what you're sharing is so radical, truly. Especially as you were sharing, like, that deep acceptance of not having to get it right. Like, even if you continue to be bulimic, I'll still love you. Even if you never live up to the expectations of perfection, I'll still love you.
Nope.
And as I really take that into my heart and contemplate what it feels like to sit with that, it like it unravels things that are within us that put that power in someone else's hands. Like, well, if someone else approves of me, then I deserve to be here. Or someone else thinks that I'm beautiful enough or good enough, then I deserve to be here. But otherwise, I mean, this is something that I've unraveled in myself over the years of spiritual work that I've done. Like, there's some part of me that's been striving to finally get it good enough so that I can relax, that I can feel like I belong here, and that I've earned my right to exist in the first place. And
We
when
don't
I
have
started,
a damn thing to earn our right.
yeah,
We just have to
yeah,
be,
when I
once we're,
as I started to realize that, I was like, oh my God, where did that story even come from? I didn't choose that on purpose.
hallelujah, hallelujah.
Yeah.
And it's so emboldening. And I used it on the mental and then applied it to the physical, but you can use it on the physical and then apply it to the mental. Like, it really doesn't matter, I don't think, how you engage with it, just that you start. That literally you don't have to ever improve yourself to be worthy of love. You don't have to be good. You don't have to you don't have to live a purpose-driven life. You don't. You can spend the rest of your life, if you choose to, focused on your pant size. That's entirely your prerogative. And you still deserve to be loved. And you
Yeah.
still deserve your space on earth. And once you kind of realize that, like, everybody deserves the life that they have, the judgment releases. Part of the judgment I had against myself, so rigidly held, was because I was judging other people pretty hard. And I
Mm.
think unless you can look at, like, people on a reality television show and recognize that they deserve love, you're not really going to be able to be the absolute best friend to yourself that you can be, until you can look at, like, Joe Exotic and be like, he deserves love. You know, you're not going to fully go to the depths of the relationship with yourself that you can. And that's okay. I mean, maybe you look at the Kardashians and you're like, no, I am not going to love them. And that's all right. But then that means the frequency of judgment is there. So the next time you come up with something in yourself that's hard for you, it'll be easier for you to say, no, I'm not going to love you if you do that. But if you're like, yeah, you know what? The Kardashians deserve love. And so does Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin and all the Tiger King people. And you probably haven't watched that.
I haven't.
It's a thing. But, but when you just sort of say, like, hey, I'm really kind of exhausted with being constantly judgmental on other people's lives, it becomes way easier to not be as judgmental on your own. And then you just, like, let it go. Like, you just, there's a lot of people who are talking about this right now. I think, there's that new book Untamed, where she's like, I had to rewild myself. I had to untame this idea that I had to be good so that I could be free. And that's really was part of the gist of it for me. I had to let go of this idea that there was anything that I needed to do other than be my natural, wild creature self. I didn't have to be good. I didn't have to be thin. I didn't have to be perfect. I didn't have to be anything to deserve my life and to deserve loving myself. Maybe I have to be nice to someone else to deserve them loving me. But I don't have to do anything to deserve my own love. And that's where you become, I think, you have the opportunity to really go deeper into your own relationship with yourself, far beyond your relationship with anyone else. Because you do
Yeah.
deserve to love yourself no matter what. And that's pretty healing. Like when you get that into the marrow of your bones, and then you sync up with the idea that there are thousands of grandmothers who are cheering you on because they went through this in some way too. This idea that we have to somehow be like small and corseted in order to earn the love and security that we want is not exclusively ours. It was in their bodies and their minds too. And let me tell you something, I have got a legion of grandmas behind me are so ready for us to be over this issue.
Oh, yes.
So ready.
Absolutely.
They're like, we are done. You know?
Yeah.
And so my healing was really boosted, I think, by a posse of at least 13,000 grandmothers behind me who were like, over this issue. Let's
Totally.
heal it, you know? So, you know, I do think it has been the central work of my own life and my own path, and not just about weight, also
Mhm.
about like states of health and going into a relationship with the body that requires trust in it, and it being way smarter on navigating this human life and this earth than the mind, you know?
Yeah. I want to share with you a little story of my own body liberation that I think you'll appreciate. So, I've always been a round woman, and I've always felt a lot of pressure in my life to be some other way than that. And in my own journey of starting to accept myself in my own skin, um, I started really appreciating the feeling of the sun on my body. And I started to want to buy a two-piece bathing suit, like a bikini. And of course, this was, I guess, 2012, 2013. Maybe before that, I started to think about it in private and never would have mentioned it out loud. But in like 2012, 2013, I was like, oh my God, I want to buy a bikini and wear it in the sun so that I could feel the sun on my own skin and recharge my own solar cells. And so I found a hot pink bikini at like TJ Maxx or someplace that was in my size. And I thought, I bought it and I left and I went home and I laid it on the bed and I was like, am I ever going to go in public in that? And so I tested it out in situations where I wouldn't have to really be around people. And then I went to Costa Rica for the first time, and it was the only bathing suit that I had. And I was right on the ocean every day, and it was 95 degrees every day. And so I would literally get up in the morning and walk to the beach in my hot pink bikini and sit in the sand with my guitar most of the day, every day. And I remember just watching the macaws and the monkeys in the trees and the leafcutter ants, realizing that I was just one more colorful bird in the mix of it all. And the word rewilding was such a huge part of my life at that point. And it was deeply healing because I learned what it was to walk around without feeling ashamed of myself and my own skin, somehow needing to literally feel smaller or to be in hiding. And I feel like that land did so much for me in just opening to be able to accept myself the way that I am. And now I can proudly say that I only buy bikinis ever. And I'm a little rounder now than I was then. And I am over it. Like, I just want to enjoy being in my own skin and feeling the sun and the water. And um, that
Totally.
was a huge step for me.
Totally. You know, so sometimes people look at me and they're like, oh, well, you know, yeah, you accept yourself, but you know, you're not a big woman. But I have been in my life. And I have had those moments of as my body shifted and, you know, I gained 100 pounds and can I still love it? And I'm like, yes. And I know now that my body was gaining that weight to give me that experience, to teach me the lesson that yes, I can love myself tiny and I can love myself round, and it's just like a different shape. and it's a different way of being, and they're all beautiful. And I would encourage people to look at other creatures for this teaching. It's like, okay, let's say that you have a cat. You really love your cat, right? And your cat's a fat cat. And it knows it's a fat cat. It goes to the vet, and the vet is like, your cat is a fat cat. And you're like, yeah, but I love my cat. It's a beautiful cat. Never once have you been like, yeah, you disgusting fat cat. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, you
Totally.
know that the cat is a round cat. Maybe you take your cat conversely, you take the cat to the vet, and the cat's underweight. Cat's too skinny. And the doctor's like, cat might need to gain a few pounds. And you're like, we'll work on it. You never look at your cat and say, you disgusting skinny cat. There's no moral attachment to these shapes when you look at your creatures, or when you see a pigeon, you're not wondering, well, are the pigeon's breasts perky or are they drooping? Like you don't experience other creatures' bodies that way. And I think it's so healing when you reconnect with the animal kingdom and you recognize that there are different shapes in the animal kingdom and different stages of life, and that your body temple can be all the different conditions and shapes and sizes, and you can still deserve to love it. And you can also choose to renovate. One of the reasons that I say, like, I am a body positive movement, but I consider myself a self-love movement, is because I do believe that if you want to renovate your body temple, or if you want to support your cat in its highest health, you can make renovations, but you should always do it out of love and friendship. And you should never do it out of punishment and judgment and critique. And if you want to renovate your body temple by going up in weight because that looks desirable to you, you get to do whatever you want. Like, this is a canvas and you can paint it. So if you want to wear a two-piece bikini, by all means wear a two-piece bikini. One of my favorite beach experiences in my life, I was topless because I liked the sun prana. And I'm totally fine with that too. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like, do what you want with your body temple, for goodness sake. Like, I don't understand. Well, I understand it, but I don't choose to live shackled to other people's opinions of what a body should look like. If somebody wants to be covered in tattoos, they can be covered in tattoos. I strongly dislike needles, so I won't be covering myself in tattoos. But that doesn't mean I can't admire someone else's tattoos. Do you know what I'm saying? So why would
Totally.
I be able to honor somebody else's shape and admire their shape?
Totally.
And just say, oh my goodness, that's such a fascinating body. And I also love the fact that, I have a master's degree in art history, randomly. And if you look throughout the history of human culture, every single shape of woman has been honored and revered at one point or another. Like, from the roundest of the round to the skinniest of the skinny, you can find a representation of the goddess that looks like you.
Yep.
And when you realize that, you're like, oh, yep, I look like a goddess is who I look like,
Absolutely. It frees up our energy to
Right?
like embody the goddess and be who we are. And
Yes, I'm like,
God.
be that goddess. Be whichever goddess you look like in the moment, be that goddess. And if this changes as you transform, then look like the other goddess. You know what like, you don't have to be pigeonholed into just one goddess. You can be all the goddesses.
I love it.
That's how I think. I'm waiting. I'm going to be the crone goddess someday. I'm ready for it.
I love it. I think that's the most powerful goddess of all, the crone goddess,
right.
and
I
who's over it.
I'm perimenopausal, and I'm walking this path towards menopause. Like, I'm having hot flashes every day now, several times a day. And I'm going through this portal of transformation into a new goddess. And that's awesome, because then I get to be all the goddesses at the end of my life all at once, just like I have all the ancestors. I'm like, this is a cumulative effect. So I'm very excited to be adding a goddess. You know what I'm saying? I'm ready.
I love it. So I want to pivot just a little bit.
Pivot.
Yoga and meditation have been such a major influence in your path. And I'm curious how you first became involved in these practices and how did they support you in your healing journey?
Okay. Well, it's really funny. Judgment, to be honest. People are like, what? I'm like, oh, yes. Judgment was one of my biggest teachers in this lifetime. So
Mm.
I now did not get into yoga, even though I'd taken some classes, like gyms and things like that. I didn't get into yoga until my late 20s. And I was never really like, I didn't really feel like I vibed with yoga people. I was more like, I liked plant medicine people at the time, but I was like, okay, whatever. I had a terrible period in my life in my 20s where I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was dating this guy, and then he cheated on me, and blah, 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 and I was in a lot of drama. I was in like a lot of personal turmoil and personal drama, and so I decided to go on a silent retreat. Like I just needed to time out. So I went up to Omega, and I was on a silent retreat, like a personal silent retreat, and I didn't speak for a week. And when I didn't speak for a week, I realized how judgmental my inner voice was. And I had no idea I was that judgmental. I would have told you I was a nice person, but my inner dialogue was not nice. I was listening to other people, judging constantly what they were talking about, judging their interests, being like, that's so stupid. I was like horrified. So then I was like, okay, well, we can't do this. We can't go throughout the world just being judgmental on the inside and then pretending to be all godly and Christ-like on the outside. Like that is a disconnect. So I was like, okay, so here's what it is. Anything you have judgment on, you have to learn about. That's the rule. So I remember I was there, was just eating my meal in the cafeteria, and I heard someone talk about numerology, and I rolled my eyes. And I was like, that's it. You got to go to the library and learn about numerology now. So I went and read a book about numerology and was like, fine, maybe there's something to this, And same thing, I overheard someone talking about astrology, and I didn't even have a mental thought. And I was like, all right, that's it. Got to go read a book about astrology. Like, okay. So I went into the store there, and I saw a CD cover with a woman wearing a turban. And I said to myself, what on earth is that woman wearing on her head? And I was like, that's it. Now you got to buy the CD. So I bought the CD, having no idea what was on it, no idea that it was yoga chants or what a yoga chant was or what a mantra was or who this woman was or what a Sikh was, why she was wearing a turban, nothing. And I finished up my retreat and went back home. And part of my job at the time required that I drive around all the time. And so I was driving and I would listen to music, and I was like, oh, I forgot that CD. So I put it in. And the first song was nice. It was like, this is weird. It was a little woo-woo. Okay, whatever. And then I got to the second song, and I literally, the frequency of the words physically pierced me like an arrow into my heart. And I burst into tears. I had to pull the car over to the side of the road. I started sobbing. There was an instant recognition. And the only thing I could think over and over again was, this is my path, and these are my words. And I had no idea what I was listening to. And that ended up being Sanattam Kaur, the musician, and that was Kundalini Yoga mantras. And
Do you remember which mantra that was?
That mantra was, it was a part of a larger mantra called Japji. And that was her song Dainda Day, which is her chorus, but it's actually a mantra known as Gave Kotan, which talks about, it's a mantra that talks about how God is essentially an energy that constantly gives. And that as humans, we receive so many blessings, we become jaded by the blessings, and we don't even recognize them anymore. And there's this refrain that it's like, God is this infinite giver, and you wake up to the awareness that you're an infinite receiver. So in that moment, there was this frequency of words that was like, hey, numbskull, you are really, really blessed. And I was like, just sort of shaken out of my awareness. And I started chanting like 8 hours a day. I became obsessed with it and was just chanting and chanting and chanting and chanting. And then like 2 years later, I was like, are there other people that chant like what this lady chants? Because I was only chanting to her. And then I realized she was a part of this whole thing called Kundalini Yoga. Literally never occurred to me I was just in the chanting. And so, as funny as that sounds, considering I've, like spent so much of my life in this world, I it didn't occur to me that there was such a thing that maybe I should look up, because I'm a slow learner. You know what I mean? Like, ask my body temple. You have to speak in a very loud voice to reach me. So 2 years into this chanting practice, I find that there's a whole system of yoga behind it. And I started studying the yoga. And I had never been so embodied before. I, was so used to spirituality being up here and relating to the divine up here. I didn't realize I could pray with my body. And that was a huge shift for me. And at the time, I was still in my eating disorders very deeply. And so it was a tremendously healing thing, because it opened up this conversation of me being able to talk to my body and begin to say, I'm sorry. At that time, I didn't like heal right away from my behaviors, but even being able to be present in my body and feel it and move it and begin to be comfortable with it, realize that it was worth something other than its number on the scale, but that it had a life, and it felt good to be in it. That was a revelation for me. So I got very, very interested and into the yoga, and just didn't really step off the path after that, and went through so many different periods and cycles, over the decade, plus that this has now been. So many periods of my practice where I'm doing hours a day, or then I'm taking a break and just listening to the music, and then I'm going back into the yoga very intensely and then relaxing with it. And I feel like a little bit like I've experienced so much pendulum on how I practice and what I want to practice. And my kind of solid center is really gentle. I've reached a point with yoga where I've transformed it away from just this one rigid system and this really incredible, powerful system, but kind of to a place where I am gentle with my body, because that is what my body wishes to do. It wants to do what is gentle. It wants to do what is loving. It wants to do what feels good. So I only do the yoga practices that meet those criteria, because it makes it happy. It found value in all of the other ways, well, like the intense hardcore yoga. It found lots of value, but it now guides the yoga that we do and the practice that we have. It tells me, it's like, oh, my legs are sore and I would like to stretch them. Okay, well, we'll do something that will stretch the legs. Does this feel good? And that's why, like, when we started with the opening meditation, I was like, inhale and, hold your breath, but don't hold it past the point of where it's comfortable. Because I don't teach any form that's uncomfortable anymore. Like, you have to have a conversation with your body and say, where is our lungs expanding to today? Okay, that's great. Thank you. So I've gone on a big journey with this yoga thing, but I will still say that the yoga just means union. And the biggest form of yoga that I have is the practice of self-love. And that's the most important one to me. And that yoga, physical yoga, like people think of as asana, that's just a dance my body and I do together. And it leads.
I love it. So you've already shared a little bit about your amazing book, which I personally love so much. It's called The Body Temple, and it's such a beautiful expression of your work and your philosophy. And in it, you guide people in practices based on what you call radical self-love, which you've already shared with us quite a bit about today. But so much of the literature available is focused on diet and exercise as a remedy for being overweight. And people with eating disorders struggle immensely in spite of all different kinds of mind-body interventions. Right now I'm in social work school, and really diving deep into studying these kind of interventions after having been on a spiritually driven path as a shamanic practitioner for so long. And so I'm just really curious, especially as someone who has navigated the path of eating disorders and who has found your way to the other side of it in this beautiful, really unconventional approach. How is the overall process that you share in the Body Temple different?
Different from
Different from the usual approach. that both for like diet, like people buy diet books, right? They want to feel good in their own skin by trying to modify themselves somehow. Um,
Well, my philosophy is that you can renovate the temple, but you have to worship there. And so I don't ever tell someone that they can't have, that they can't diet or that they can't have an eating disorder. I don't even really address it, even though that's exactly what my work is for and about. It's really about first losing the weight in your heart, and then seeing how the body renovates, and letting the body temple lead that process rather than the mind leading that process. And recognizing that if the body has gained more weight than is healthy, what is the message? Because it wouldn't sacrifice itself in that way, in a way that was uncomfortable, unless it was teaching you something. And there are a lot of messages in being heavier. I know because I've been morbidly obese, so I understand what that kind of body feels like. I've also loved myself in a morbidly obese body, and was very proud of my body. And I also had, some pain in my joints and things that were a little less comfortable. But, at that time, my body was really trying to get me personally, and it's different for everyone, but me personally, to understand how much I was trying to protect myself from the world around me. And it was beyond that. It was really, I was trying to protect myself from an awareness that the life I had created wasn't the life I wanted. I desperately wanted to hide from that truth and that reality. And, so I believe in that you can you can redecorate your body temple. You can redesign your body temple if you want to, but that has nothing to do with my book or my lineage. I never talk about weight loss. I never talk about weight gain. We're an unconditional self-love system here. This book is about losing the weight in your heart. The rest of it is just decor. It's about accepting yourself, even if you never lose weight, even if you never renovate your body. It's about accepting yourself and loving yourself through independent of condition. So it could never be, the body temple could never be a system of weight loss. It could never be a system of weight gain, because that would make it conditional somehow. And the whole point of what has healed me in my life is that it's an energy beyond condition. And I think that, I read that, especially now as we're in this, crazy quarantine period and this unprecedented pandemic. I read so many people who are afraid of gaining weight, or the quarantine 15, or all the memes surrounding weight gain. And my instinct is to say, oh, that's bad. But I don't, because that would be a judgment on that too. I think people are anxious. And think about it like this, like kids, when they lash out, who do they lash out at? They lash out at the people closest to them. Mm-hmm. They're like, Mommy, I hate you. So your body is your closest companion. It's there with you during quarantine. And it's an easy thing to lash out at. So it's a really human and very understandable reaction to this really unnatural situation, to lash out at the thing that loves you most, supports you most, and is closest to you. But when you realize that's all that you're doing, that all you're doing is operating from this, you're kind of needing to verbalize your discomfort. You're needing to project it somewhere because inside of you feels too much. And so you have to say something or make it be about something, or you have to eat. See, because eating brings you into your body. Mm-hmm. So if you're out of your body habitually and you eat, you overeat, even if it's uncomfortable, you're present. And that's a desirable state. You'll feel better when you're in your body than out of your body. You're just going to feel better. So that's why people think overeating is fun. It's not. It's being in your body that's fun. Overeating is very uncomfortable. And it makes you sluggish and tired. And that's the reality of it. But feeling in your body feels good. Conversely, hunger does that for some people. People who tend towards undereating, tend towards anorexia, the sensation of hunger brings them into their body. So they're like, I like to be hungry. No, you don't. Hungry is uncomfortable. You actually like to be in your body. So when you do things like yoga, when you do things like pranayama and meditation, you're bringing yourself into your body. So you're experiencing the the thing that all those food reactions over or under are actually trying to get you to. That's why I can't judge food addictions, eating disorders. I can't judge people who overeat, undereat, because I get it. You wouldn't do it if it didn't work for you in some way, but there's a better path. So when you love yourself, when you bring yourself into your body in this embodied place, it's very difficult to want to lash out at your body because you feel its intense love for you. You're kind of, and you love it. So you're in this like dance where you're with your true love and your divine. And it's very hard to want to lash out at your true love and your divine when they're not doing anything but supporting you. It's like, but you can, people do, particularly in this crazy situation. People behave like that. So that's kind of how I view this. So I think if someone's in quarantine and they are confronted by wanting to overeat and they're worried about gaining weight and they're hating on the way their butt looks or whatever it is, or that their stomach isn't small enough or whatever they're fixating on, it's really understandable. But it's not the most mature response. And it's a little bit of like a spiritual childhood. And you can grow up a little bit. You can recognize what's happening within you and say, no, instead of lashing out at that which loves me and supports me the most, I'm going to stay present here, even when it's uncomfortable. So I'm going to deeply love and accept myself, even if I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to deeply love and accept myself, even if I'm anxious. I'm going to deeply love and accept myself, even if I'm stressed. I'm going to deeply love and accept myself, even if I overeat. I'm going to deeply love and accept myself, even if I undereat. There is nothing I could do or no state of being I could have that will cause me not to love and accept myself. And that shifts the dynamic, and then you stop the behaviors.
It almost sounds like, too, a dynamic in that is the desire to feel
Yeah,
something, like to come back into the body and to really feel what's happening.
totally. You see that manifest in some of the more modern disorders with some of our younger generation. You see a lot of cutting in this generation that you didn't see as much in previous generations. And cutting is just about feeling something. It's about when you're out of your body so much and you're very mentally apathetic, you want to feel something, and pain is a something. So you'll go for it because it's easy to do. And a lot of people will do that with overeating. They actually get addicted to the feeling of pain in their stomach because that is something. You're feeling something. And there's just a different way. There's just a different way to get to that feeling. There's a more, honestly, it's not even a better way, it's a more effective way. That's usually how I talk to people, that it's not that it's like a classier way or a more elegant way, or, sometimes you don't want the more loving way, like sometimes you're like, screw that, I don't feel loving. Right. It's a more effective way. Oh, effective is something that I think people are universally interested in. So that's what I think. I think it's very human, extremely normal. I think it's deeply, deeply programmed in our culture to kind of crack a joke about our weight and to deflect there. I think it's incredibly rooted in when we have a fear of survival, to go towards soothing with the mouth. We've done that since we were infants. We've gone towards taking in food from the mouth in order to feel safe and loved and secure and protected. There's so many layers to this, and none of them are worth judging yourself over. None of them are worth, they don't make you bad. They don't make you less than. They don't make you stupid. They make you human. But there is a different way of being human. There is a different way of relating to your body. There is a different way of managing the anxiety and the stress that doesn't lead to that. And it's really powerful. Like, when I think about my history with food, it's shocking to me that now we're in this state of pandemic and I have no desires to compulsively overeat. None. Like, that's just like, thank God, like, hallelujah, because that would be very difficult. And that is very difficult for a great number of people out there, because you're trapped in four walls with your own thoughts. And if you haven't worked them out, you're going to confront right up against them at some point.
Absolutely.
And then there's people who have to worry about children and relationship dynamics. And I'm here on my own, essentially. But so anyway, that's what I would say. I mean, it's a very long-winded, multi-leveled answer, but it requires that, I think. I think it requires you being compassionate and knowing there could be lots of reasons you're doing something. And there's also lots of solutions. There's lots of help. There's lots of
Yeah.
ways to do something different. And meditation and mantra and yoga and breathing exercises, pranayams, those are all ways. There's also, there's ceremony, there's walking the earth, barefooting. There's, earthing, I think it's called, not barefooting.
Yeah. Earthing. Yeah.
Yeah, earthing, barefooting. There's, there's so many ways to make you feel in your body and grounded and connected and feel, because we deserve that too. Yeah, and that's the journey. I don't think there's anything wrong with humans that we, forget and then have to find a way back to spirit. I think this is probably how the game is designed.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like we have basic needs, and there's nothing wrong with the needs, but there are maladaptive ways of meeting those needs, and then there are life affirming ways of meeting those needs. And that sounds like a
Yeah.
big part of what this journey is. Like, you're going to choose something that is you're wanting to feel, so you're going to harm yourself to feel, or can you choose something that's actually feels loving and beautiful, that
Yeah, a lot
also
of
is a
people know.
path of feeling.
A lot of people can't. A lot of people are still at a place where they want to hurt themselves, and I can totally understand that. I've been there before in
Yeah.
my life. But when you're your best friend, and your body is your best friend, and you build the foundation of your life on that, and you trust the animal wisdom that's in your bones, it's difficult to maintain enough hatred to harm for very long. And the more and more you reground and you reroot in that truth, reroot in that experience, not that mental truth, but that experience of the body's wisdom, the experience of the body's power, it becomes harder and harder and harder to work up the energy to cause it harm. And then you just stop eventually. At some point, you can reach the tipping point, and then then it becomes so easy. It becomes so easy to love your body. And luckily, by the grace of God, that's where I am, and on this path. And boy, it took a long time for me to get there. I am a slow learner, and I am a deep learner. Like, if I'm going to learn a lesson, then I'm going to learn it. You know what I mean? And just trusting that too, that it wasn't like, oh, I spent 25 years with eating disorders and I could have figured this out in 2. I mean, that's true. I could have, but I didn't. And I do feel that my path was to go to the end, like how far, like I had to go to the nth degree. And there's a wisdom in my body there too. There's a wisdom in my body being willing to do that for so long, because I don't think if I had done that, I don't think I would be so passionate about sharing this. I don't think I would be so passionate about helping people rewild themselves, and get back into that innate happiness that does bubble up from the cells.
I love it. So, as we come to the close of our time together today, I'm wondering if you would be willing to guide us in another meditation, perhaps something from the Body Temple
Yes.
that would help people to really work with this path of self-love.
Okay. There's a lot of different meditations that I could offer, and so many that pop into my head, after our journey and our conversation. But I'm going to give you meditation that's very useful when you're not quite there yet. And then I'm going to tell you what I put on the top of almost every meditation that I ever do that will really help you get to self-love a lot faster. Certainly helped me. I can't promise it for every person, but I'm pretty sure your body's going to like it. So the meditation is, the word that I'm going to share is a meditation for dissolving negativity. And what it is it's a really good way when your mind is kind of caught in that cycle, that pattern of self-loathing or self-hate or discontent with your pant size or whatever it is. It can be like huge scale, like I hate myself and I want to die, and a small scale of like, ew, look at that pimple. You know what I mean? Like any sort of negative thought. It's a spectrum. So you cup your hands in front of you. All right. You shut your eyes and you inhale through the nose. We're used to that, right? We got good at that in the beginning. You can inhale through the nose. And then I want you to blow into your hand, just like you're blowing on like a dandelion or something like that. So you really want to feel the air go into your hand. So now what I want you to do is, and you probably are not thinking too many negative thoughts, Angela, but work with me here. And just imagine that you are. And I want you to blow those negative thoughts into your hand. I want you to imagine that your hand's like a black hole. And you're going to blow all this negativity out. And it's going to go on to the other side of the universe where, don't worry, it won't hurt anybody else. It's going to be transmuted. But you're just going to blow it all out into your hands, okay? Just inhale through the nose. And you can let negativity bubble up from different parts of your body, disease, pain, whatever it is, and just keep blowing it into the black hole in your hands. So any sense of not accepting yourself, any sense of, man, I should be better at this meditation, whatever it is, just blow it out. Use anything that comes up as fodder for the blowing. So you don't judge the feeling of negativity, don't judge the thought of negativity. If it bubbles up, good, because then you get to blow it out. And let your breathing become deeper and deeper and just more and more slow and relaxed, more and more calm. Just feel yourself becoming more and more relaxed, more peaceful, more still inside. Let your breath out get gentler and gentler. And inhale deeply. And exhale. And imagine this portal in your hands closing up so that the energy cannot come back to you. And drop your hands so that the portal dissolves. There's no any negativity on your hands. There's nothing that stays in this body temple, nothing that stays in this field. Now bring your hands together in prayer and say, I love you. And allow that to charge your hands. Now take your hands and press them into every part of your body, into your wings and your arms and your face and your chest and your stomach and your hips and your thighs, and keep saying, I love you. Every time you press your hands into your body, over and over again, I love you. Go to the parts that you don't often say that to. I love you. Go to the fat cells that you don't often say that to, that you often wish would change size. And just say, I love you. I love you. I love you. And just feel this rich energy of love all over your body, just pressing it in, imprinting it like a stamp all over your body. And bring your hands back up into prayer. And then feel your body say, I love you too. And so it is.
Wow, what a beautiful meditation. Thank you so much for sharing
You're
that.
so welcome. It's so simple. It's another thing you can do anywhere. Anytime you start, don't judge yourself when the thoughts come up. Just use it as fodder for meditation. It's like, oh, great, now I'm ready. Thank you. I'm so glad I've been so negative today. And then you just sort of let it spill out. And then for me, I use that process of pressing love into me like a stamp so that my body can feel it because it's very visceral. I can say
Mhm.
I love you and it appreciates that. But I think, imagine the difference. And everyone has a different love language. Mine is touch. So,
Mine is too.
so like my body wants to feel it. It's like, yeah, prove it. And I'm like, okay, I love you. I love you. I love you, and you give it that. And then you always remember to heal it back, to feel that back. Because every heartbeat is your body telling you it loves you. You know, it can't stop. While you're sleeping, it's loving you. It's doing everything you need. It's taking care of you. Even when it's in the middle of a painful, difficult lesson, it's still loving you. It's still reaching for life. And life is how it shows you love because it's, we are our souls and we're these spiritual creatures and we come here to this earth to live this life, to have these lessons. And the longer our body can be a temple for us, the more and more lessons we can learn. And it is so in love with us because without our souls, it's dust. But with our souls in it, it can dance and sing and make love and run and do all sorts of incredible things and experience so much. So it's very happy to have the presence of your soul. All those cells are like, this is amazing. And in every moment it's trying to support you and reach towards more and more life. So when it gives you life, that's its love language. It's showing you love. And so if you are alive, your body is loving you. And if you are breathing, your body is loving you. And if you have a heartbeat, your body is loving you. And it's harder to feel like you don't deserve love when something is so constant and you're aware of it. It's hard to feel like you aren't loved when it's right here and you can feel it and you're aware of it. So your mind just releases all of those false beliefs and just falls into this state of awareness. It's like, yes, I do deserve to love myself. I am loved. And so it's a good way of being. It's a good path. I like this path. I'm so glad I'm on it. And I'm grateful to you, Angela, for letting me share it with other people and trying to maybe inspire a few more people to be a little bit more kind to themselves, a little bit more kind to their bodies.
Well, I just want to thank you for bringing this hugely important message to people, especially right now. We're in this time where there's a lot of uncertainty and we have a lot more time on our hands. I mean, some of us do anyway. And so instead of going down the dark hole, connecting to wisdom that is so uplifting and can help us to anchor in something that's more supportive is so useful and so necessary. So I just want to really thank you for taking the time to share such beauty with us.
Yes. And thank you for reminding me about how important the ancestors' teachings are because I have ancestors that have lived through many plagues.
Me
And,
too.
they have done this before. And I'm like, this is unprecedented times. And then my body's like, no, it's not. We know how to do this. We've done this before. So
Absolutely.
I appreciate you bringing that back into my awareness and my memory that my people did survive Black Death and they did survive the Spanish flu. So they are and survival doesn't necessarily mean that the body continues. Survival is eternal. Our the survival of this DNA, even if it's not from my direct progeny, will continue. Will have access to this wisdom, and survival of my soul is just like endless. So, thank you for reminding me of that through this conversation, and because that's what we do. We teach each other. Even when I'm like, oh, I'm going to share my path and my story. Every time I speak about it, I learn more things about, well, what do I really believe? Oh my gosh, yes, I believe that, so I can validate it for myself. I can validate it for my body temple. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. And I just want to encourage everyone to check out the amazing book, The Body Temple. It's beautiful. The colors and just the way that it's all put together is so beautiful. And it goes so much deeper into what we've been sharing here today. And so it's a wonderful tool to companion us through this time. And
Yeah.
so I'll make sure to include information about how to find that at the very end of this video.
Yeah.
Thank you, my sister. I wish you infinite blessings in your continued beautiful path.
Oh, thank you. I am sending you so much love to you and your body temple. And
Thank
I
you.
wish you outrageous health and happiness in the years to come.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye bye.